Welcome to Hospitality on the Rise, the podcast about the people shaping the hospitality industry and their journeys. I'm your host, Alice Chang, founder and CEO of Culinary Agents, hospitality's go-to hiring platform. And I'm here to give you your dose of virtual mentorship. Here, we'll be sharing the stories, lessons learned, and advice from hospitality leaders who've carved out their own path to success. After all, this industry is where many get their start and go on to do incredible things. Whether you're a pro, starting out, or just love the hustle, this podcast highlights what makes hospitality extraordinary: the people. We're so excited to have Erling Wu-Bower with us today, chef partner _ hospitality with the restaurant Maxwells Trading, which we'll hear more about, partner at Ripe Fruit, which is a hospitality consulting and innovation firm, 2025 JBFA semifinalist with Chris Jung, Best Chef, Great Lakes, Maxwells Trading, and three-time JBFA finalist. So Erling, thank you for joining us today.
Very welcome. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and I have had the pleasure of knowing you for many, many years, and I have been fortunate to dine at many of the places that you have been at the helm of. But curious, how did it all begin? How did you get started?
I mean, I kind of was cooking out of the womb. My mom was a food writer. My dad's a food loving Cajun. We're the kind of family that starts talking about tomorrow's dinner at breakfast. It just food was always what coursed through my blood. I never really thought outside of wanting to be a firefighter and an astronaut. At a young age, I never thought about doing anything else, and it's kind of how I got on this path. Got a job immediately after college, and just line cooked my way to where I am now.
Great, great. Well, you make it sound so easy. Did you when you were cooking at the time, did you already know like this is what I'm doing? Like this is going to be my profession, my career?
I think that's a good question. I didn't really have a plan immediately after college. I didn't. I mean, I wasn't sure that it was going to be my career, but I was certainly going to give it a shot. My parents were super supportive. And in a city like Chicago, where it's easy to find roommates, where it's easy to find jobs at various different restaurants that can really feed your culinary needs and your culinary educational needs. I found it very easy, and I also just love the lifestyle. So after about 5 years of being into it, yeah, and I had decided that this was a path that I was going to stay on.
Great, great. And at that point, were you like, okay, I'm going to stay in Chicago. You had spent quite some time working with one of hospitality group and some of their restaurants. Like how did you think through like what is the next step? Now I know I want to do this and I know I don't want to just, do it half ass. Like how do I
I'm
get this
not. I'm
done?
not. I'm not a big planner. I'm not a big planner at all. I more just kind of reacted to what was around me. Like I never had a plan. Like in 5 years I want to open a restaurant. In another 5 years I want to own a restaurant. I just kept working with incredible ingredients on a regular basis, and was my passion was completely fed by that. So as as I kept being inspired by ingredients, right, and stayed at restaurants that I really liked, I found that I also kind of started elevating on the chef ladder, right? Like it was just a matter of me doing what I really loved. And I just kind of progressed to a point where I became a chef de cuisine, and at that point I just continued to like work on and hone my craft, right? At that point, when you become a chef de cuisine, it becomes a question of management. The food is the easy part, and I honed that craft, and then just like kind of kept climbing in one company. I think the unique thing about my story is that I worked with one company and then partnered with one company for I think 14 years. So there was never like an I need to jump from place to place. You had asked a question about leaving Chicago. Like I never even thought about leaving Chicago. My roots are so deep here. I love the city so much that I was completely committed to the city. And I was very happy with the company that I was working with because my passion was fed, right? I was happy. I was compensated in all the ways that I needed to be, right? Compensation not just being money, but just, lifestyle. Um,
Yeah, and kudos to them, being, I would say that's an employer brand that a lot of people strive for, right? Retention and recognizing the passion, dedication, and talent, and then growing that individual or those individuals either with them or beyond, their group. Um, so take me to, when you finally, how did you know you were ready for your own project?
I think the theme of this podcast might kind of be, I think the time chooses you. You don't necessarily always choose the time thus far. I I knew I was ready because there were some partners around me. Most notably, my business partner today, Josh Tilden, who was just ready to go. And we always talked about new restaurant concepts and numbers, and the man's obsessed with spreadsheets, and we would just kind of like apply thoughts to perform us, right? And then as we did that enough and enough and enough, we were just like, okay, I think it's time. I think it's time to do something on our own or with a partnership, right? And we ended up partnering with One Off at Pacific Standard Time, which was the restaurant distinctly preceding Maxwell's, directly preceding Maxwell's. So that's how I knew it was time. You know, I, I don't necessarily think that I was like, okay, I'm ready to be a restaurateur. It just seemed to be, I kind of like, after a while, just know that like, I need to make a move, right? It's usually about 3, 4 years when like I feel like I've done what I've needed to do, and I try to like grow a pie rather than just change locations, right? Like how can we stay where we are, but also do a little bit more? And I think that's how I got there.
Yeah, yeah, it's great, and I like asking that question because sometimes one of the common threads that we hear from leaders is patience, right? And sometimes people feel like they're ready for something, but they're really not. And that kind of goes in a two-way with mentors and mentees, et cetera. So I always find it interesting how people know when the time is ready. And sometimes it's just you feel it. You've reached a point where you've learned what you wanted to learn, or you've met the right people, and the timing just seems right. And sometimes it's it's just a an impatience that drives people to do things, and that may or may not work out for them. So
Yeah,
so
I think that like just to comment on that, if you don't mind, like sometimes the time chooses you and it takes a long time, and sometimes it moves really fast, right? Like sometimes opportunity presents itself and you have to take it, and sometimes you just kind of have to stay put. If you force opportunity, right, that's when I feel like you make bad decisions, right? Because you read into it, you read into a situation something that's not there because you'd want it so bad. So, and I've done both, right? I've forced poorly and I've been patient. But people always say, "Man, you're so young." I'm like, I've been doing this for 17 years. Like it's not, it took me 17 years to get to here. So sure, thank you for saying that. I'm glad that you think I look young, but it's been a road.
yeah, and you're just getting started. I mean, it's
Sounds stressful.
look. I mean, so okay, so now so you have your first project, and now you're on your next project, right? You've had some projects in between then. Trading was a different kind of project, right? Because it's I don't want to say it's one that's done on your own. You have your partners, et cetera. But tell us a little bit about some of the differences as you were planning and building, Maxwell's, um, that you learned.
Yeah, there is no on my own. If I was on my own, I would be, drowning in a ditch somewhere without Josh. Josh is my light and my guide. Um, the differences with Maxwell is simply that it is underscores project solo. We certainly have investors um, and very valuable voices that help guide us, but like it is an underscore project. And not only is it an underscore project, but it's in a new neighborhood for restaurants in Chicago, and that was certainly a risk. I have my investor's name is Tracy Boychuk. She's a friend and investor, and I got to know her because she started doing the flowers at Pacific Standard Time, and she was like, "Well, when do you want me to come to do the flowers so I don't make a mess in or when I make a mess, your customers won't see it?" And I was just like, "I actually just want you to make a mess in the middle of lunchtime, as if it was a flower studio." And I think at that point, she kind of realized that we might have um, some sort of symbiosis. And then, when I was looking in the neighborhood that I wanted to go in, I would just I'd throw in, what are these called? Headphones, earpods? I don't know. I'm old. And just drive around Chicago, and I kind of zeroed in a neighborhood that I loved and realized that Tracy had a headquarters here. And we just kind of started looking together. And so that's kind of how the neighborhood and the relationship kind of started, the real estate relationship. And then the building that we're in now as Maxwell's is actually that headquarters that I just mentioned. We kind of siphoned all the way back to the building. Um, Maxwell's is, I think the most unique thing about Maxwell's, and it's ironic, is that I finally just built a restaurant for myself. Like the two customers that we imagined when we built this restaurant were Josh and I. Josh and I wanted to build a restaurant where we come and sit at our bar, listen to our records, and drink martinis. And it was flippant and it was trite. Um, but what it really did was, if you're your own customer, you are going to design a restaurant that you want to be in. If you want to be at a restaurant, you're going to be there, right? And then like that type of want really breeds um a great relationship between you and your restaurant, right? Like I've had relationships with restaurants in the past that were slightly adversarial, not because of who was in them, but because of just like maybe the food didn't exactly look the way you wanted to, or maybe the customers were asking for something that was kind of outside of what you had initially thought about the restaurant. At this restaurant, it kind of made it impossible because the customer was me. So I think the really cool thing about that is like I want to be here, and I'm always in the dining room, like tinkering with various things and just kind of making it exactly what I'm looking for it to be. And at a lot of other restaurants, you just reach a point of like, well, I don't really understand what I want it to be. It's kind of taken on a life of its own. Does that make sense? That I wasn't making any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm just letting you talk. I'm like, okay. Um, and I don't wanna, I don't wanna skirt around the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first project where you kinda shifted your focus from back of house to front of house in the sense of where you're spending more of your time. Is that correct? You
I
have
don't wear I don't wear an
yeah,
apron. I don't wear an apron. I don't wear a chef's
yeah,
coat. Um,
and that's
that
change for you, yes?
it's a huge change. I mean, I'm a chef by trade.
Do you, like, twitch when you see something and you wanna, like, jump back there?
No, I want to give everybody credit. I mean, I think the most credit goes to the executive chef here at Maxwell's, Chris Jung. Like he's the fact that I'm not as involved on like a night to night basis in the kitchen. He runs the kitchen. He's the executive chef, is a credit to him. Um, I think if you were on this podcast, he would also probably be like, I wish Erling would get out of my hair. Right. Like it's a bummer for him that there's somebody, not a bummer. It's great for the restaurant, but I just like, I know what I know what kitchen excuses are. I know what kitchen operations are. And right, I can see through um, a lot of the operational deficiencies that we might have. Right. So that's a little bit of a bummer for him because I'm just going to be able to say what's what. Um, I'm very involved in the creative process. Well, Chris and I like to say that, the food here at Maxwell's is basically the product of an argument between us. Other the people, like, that's our creative process, right? And I actually like it. Certainly, we're like brothers. He's very much like I was, 10 years ago, and I love it, right? And I'm trying to manage the relationship the way I wanted it to be managed when I was going through it. And I think sometimes I succeed and sometimes I don't. But like we bring we bring our collaborative nature to the table. And like I think the food that you see is largely a result of two chefs who have similar but differing visions, like putting stuff together. So the food's a conversation between Chris and I, and it works out really, really well. Um,
What would you say is the biggest challenge with the transition for you personally, going from, transitioning into, like, back to front essentially, even though you're still heavily involved?
yeah. I mean, this is an industry leaning podcast, right? So I mean,
Yes.
customers are the biggest change, right? Like, um, and I love quite obviously I love customers. That's why we do this. When you're in the kitchen, to speak frankly, like you know the habits of your cooks, right? You know what they might do after their shifts. You know what you're gonna get the next day, and if you don't know what you're gonna get, right, you can predict what you're gonna get, right? It like the spectrum of predictability is pretty small. It's not with customers. You have no idea what you're gonna get. You have no idea who's gonna walk in your door, or you don't know if people are gonna walk in your door, and that variability is wildly different from the variability that you get in the kitchen. Um, I was always a friend of the house leading chef. I always, thought that I understood the massive impact and value of service. I would say that even though I considered myself a front of the house leading chef, I underestimated the integral nature and the value of service, right? And that has been eye-opening and mind-blowing for me, um, to watch. The challenges, there's challenges every day. The main challenge is like a customer who you don't know, right? Like a customer who you can't make happy. Um, and that's just, I'm not saying that that's I'm not blaming the customer. It's just something that I hadn't experienced before. Like I'm very challenged by a customer that I can't make happy, and I really want to try as hard as I can to make them happy. But sometimes they're just people that you can't make happy. That's different, right? Um, the relationship is not an employment relationship like it is in the kitchen. You have a cook that you can't make happy, like you're their boss. That's not the case with the customer. So that is the biggest change. Um, it's a welcome challenge. And I think that having chef's experience and then switching, I don't think I've switched to the front of the house, right? Like I'm some sort of hybrid, but quote unquote switching to the front of the house really puts new perspective in both places. Puts new perspective on the front of the house floor, right? I know what the kitchen is up against to get the food out, but also the opposite, right? I can tell the kitchen what they need to do with even more experience because ultimately we're here to make the guest happy. So
Yeah, so you can just go jump and expedite, whenever you want, right?
I
No.
don't think I mean, I don't think they like it.
I know. Well, and that's part of ownership. That's part of being a leader. It's part of, like you said, you're learning, right? And if you look at one of the things that Culinary Agents recently did was just take a look at our data around skills and skills requirements, and we found that the number one skills that people are looking for back of house is communication. And that was interesting, like everything else is table stakes, but communications was something that people were really looking for. And oftentimes when you think of when you think about somebody who is either starting out and has dreams to opening and running their own place, or just wants to be a leader in the industry or a leader in general, sometimes it gets cloudy in the unknowns of like what they need to do to get there, right? So, what are the skills would you say that are the most important that, you would tell somebody, hey, if your goal is to if you are a chef trained, and that's where you spent most of your time in the back of house, and your goal is to own and operate your own place one day and eventually get to a point where you're not the one day to day in the back cooking, right? What would you say are your top 3 skills that somebody should definitely focus on, if that was their goal?
Identifying talent, I think that's the most important one. Um, Identify talent and then hold on for dear life. Identify talent and then truly invest in those talented individuals. Do not think that do not over inflate your own value in those situations and invest in those that can help you get to where you want to get. I think that's the most important one. Communication is super important. Um,
And you need to know how
I,
to cook,
you do, of course, you need to know how to cook. I haven't. I mean, I'm gonna say it as the third one, but it's third, right? Like, I don't think communication is not the word I would use. Like, it's management, right? I frequently talk to my managers and say, like, we actually have to manage our way out of this situation. We're not going to spend our way out of the situation. We're not going to hire our way out of the situation. It's not going to be magic. We actually have to manage, right? So, like, you have to throw stuff against the wall and see if it sticks. You have to sit down and have difficult conversations with individuals, right? And like that craft, the craft of actually managing people is fucking hard, right? And like some people have a gift for it, some people don't have a gift for it. I've seen many people who didn't have the gift for it get really good at it, right? So like the willingness to manage people, right? The great chefs are managers. They're not cooks, right? The great chefs are both. So yeah, I would say identifying talent, figuring out management, and then yeah, you got to be able to cook, right? You got to be able to cook consistently. Um, you know, but it's actually third in line for me at my restaurants, right? Like I can get you to a good cook. The other two, identification of talent and management, I can actually also get you there, but they're more value to me for a chef.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. So, and as you're looking at, other projects. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, you have your big project, or I should say, I'll just call it Maxwell's because all your projects are big. Um, and you're working on several other things. What's next? What are you how do you split your time? What are you focusing on? What are things that we should be looking out for that's coming down the pipe that you can share?
I'm always looking. I think what's the phrase that I like to use right now? We're being patiently aggressive in our search. Um, but growth is the goal. It's not a goal in and of itself, which is an important point to make, right? Like growth for itself ends up being pretty ugly. We just have, people are just like, well, why do you want to do? I'm like, I just have more to say, right? Like there's other ideas that I want to express. There's more people that I want to feed. Um, there's
Yeah,
more
I mean,
cool,
you're only 17 years in, right? So you got like
right?
another at least
Exactly.
35, right? But um, you
So
know,
yeah, there's definitely more ideas out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they happened, quote unquote, soon. I also wouldn't be surprised if they didn't happen soon. I I forgot what I had said earlier. Like sometimes these opportunities come at you really quick, right? And and in multiple. Sometimes you just have to be patient and say, this might not be the time. I'm pushing too hard. I'm making situations that are mediocre look good in my head, and it's dangerous.
yeah, and it sounds like be prepared either way, right? Because you never know,
Yeah.
and you need to have gone through that thought process and the different scenarios, so that you can make the right decisions when that opportunity arises. Right? I think that's
Yeah,
also
and like
really
I think that one of the things sorry to interrupt.
no,
I
no, go
interrupt.
ahead.
So
This is about you. I'm
um
just here to fill in the blanks.
I think one of the things that like Josh lives in Atlanta, which actually makes the
I
operation
didn't know
strong.
that actually.
Yeah. He's a partner who just is the cold, calculated, like he'll say like, "Man, like labor was way too high last night." I'm like, "Well, you weren't like here." Like he's like, "Honestly, like it's not my job. It's my job to tell you that and then you deal with it or don't deal with it." But like I love just having like somebody who's just like based on what you see on the software saying how it should have been, right? I love being held to account. One of the things that we do with the point that I was going to make is like we're consistently talking about possibilities, right? The possibilities of this lease happening, the possibilities of like various different investment and money structures working. And like I think Josh and I probably talk an hour a day, right? And I think if you listen to a lot of it might sound BSy. But what it allows us to do is when a situation does arise, we've already talked through it, and we might not have identified what the answer would be, but it's like, hey, this situation did present itself. We've done the work in our heads of what it's here. So now it's like we know the data, right? We know the risks. Make a decision, right? So we don't have to waste time. That said, there's a billion combinations of like how these things come to you. But like one of the reasons we talk so much is we want to be prepared for those opportunities when they arise.
Yeah, I love that. I think that can be applied to so many different things. I mean, it's like planning, strategizing, sometimes it unlock creative juices, etc. But it all roads lead back to being prepared, right? And because you don't know what's going to happen and you don't want to squander a potential opportunity that, brings itself. And you also want to make sure you're on the same page with the people you're working with. We also do that, in different forms um, on our day to day as well. So all these skills that can be skills and scenarios that can be applied to restaurants and any other things, right? Um, so with all these different things going on, and with your key folks also remote, which sometimes is good, sometimes can present some different challenges. How do you keep everything balanced? I mean, sounds like
What is balance?
ba-
Like
explain your version of of
I don't. I mean, the answer is I don't.
yeah.
My life is the first scene of Home Alone. Like with the house in Home Alone when everyone is pure and utter chaos. Like that's life. I don't. This is. I mean, this is this. I get asked this question rather often, and my answer is like, my life isn't actually balanced, and that's okay. I think there's just like this search for like trigger words for me. Work life balance. I, it's defined by the individual, right? my work and my life by most metrics aren't balanced, but I find joy in it, right? And like, at the beginning of this call, you saw my 4-year-old running around, and like it's just that's fine. Like he's here in the restaurant. He sees the fact that I'm doing a podcast. My 9-year-old's, he knows the ins and outs of this restaurant and like the little secret rooms and passageway better than anybody. And I love that, right? Like I love the fact that it's kind of a family place. How do I find balance? I think I focus on intensity of time, not amount of time. I try to focus on being effective as a dad, as a partner, um, as a life partner, also as a business partner. When you're in those moments, be in those moments and give them as much as you can. Try not to be distracted. When you have a moment, it's okay. This is something that I've just recently worked on. It's okay not to be busy, and it's okay to scroll Instagram for 15 minutes, just 30 minutes if we're being honest, and just let your brain turn off. Should you go to the gym instead? Sure. But it's also okay if you just, veg out for 15 minutes. Take the time. Don't make yourself feel bad about it. Um, and like, just admit the fact that you're doing it. So, how do I keep my life balanced? I don't. My life is not balanced. But like,
But it
I,
works.
I've gotten used to what my life is. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm trying to make it more unbalanced.
I love it. I mean, I know I ask that question oftentimes during these sessions. I actually know the answer I'm going to get back. And I still love hearing everyone's iteration, which is also, very similar to each other. But that's, I think in this industry in general, balance is what works for you. Right? Just happens to be a word that means something that means, something else to somebody else. But yes, I and I think a lot of people are on this constant quest of figuring out how to just satisfy all the buckets. But I love that, like when you're in the moment, just be in that moment, because focus is more important than, you know, spreading thin, I should say.
So, to make it clear, I agree with everything you just said. And I want to further it by saying certain generations that were born after us focus on want, right? And desire as the motivation for balance. That's not what I'm saying. There's plenty of times when I come to work that I don't want to come to work. The key is not like I'm doing what I want. The key is I'm fulfilling my responsibilities. Do you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
walking like
100%.
so some people are like, well, I just really don't wanna like I really want to work 2 days a week. It's like, well, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like you still have to do the basics.
Yeah. There is this unspoken but spoken, I would say, if we're talking about, because in hospitality, in restaurants specifically, and in a lot of these types of businesses, you are dealing with generational diversity on a regular basis. You might have some folks.
Generational diversity. That's a new one for me. I like this.
Oh, yeah? Okay. I'm gonna send you a bill for that. It's it's, you can have somebody who is just starting out, in the work world, and you can have somebody who's been doing it for 16, 17, 18 years, etcetera. And they need to complete service together. They need to work side by side, and they have different styles of communication, different everything, right? Different wants, etcetera. And I think that's also interesting, in the world of like being a leader is just you have to kind of understand and manage and navigate that as well. But you're absolutely right. There's a difference between work-life balance. And I think that's why so many people shy away from that phrase where it's like more of a 5 p.m., I'm going to go have my life and I already worked. I want to do this. I don't want to work today because I don't feel like it. So that's my balance versus you have responsibilities and it's more of managing your time so that you complete your responsibilities and you have time to do things that you would want to do or rather do or do things for yourself or that you need to do otherwise, right? So absolutely. I mean, I'll put that little phrase in the controversial bucket of it depends. Think about generational diversity when you're talking to your teams about that. And it absolutely is something that is a real thing that people have to deal with, and depending on who they're talking to, it means different things.
I couldn't agree more. And one of the things that I'm beginning to realize is that generational diversity is real, right? Like we talk about it. Now listen to me. I'm talking about it like I know about it.
Oh, it just
Um,
rolled off your tongue. It was great.
but I do understand that different generations are different, but the emotion, I do tend to feel that there's an underlying emotion that's a common human emotion, right? And so like when I hear, what do the kids say? They say they want to be seen and heard, right? Like I take that, and at first I react adversely because I'm like, what does this exactly mean? But I get it. It's like, hear me out, right? Like, listen to me, tell me that I have value, right? Reassure me, right? And then can we go on doing our jobs, right? So what I'm trying to do is just like, I'm trying to be a translator when it comes to generation. I have to be, right? I have no
Yeah.
choice.
Well, it goes back to what you said about the skill of managing, right? Those are people, emotions, and they really want those things. And to them, the definition is the separation, right? And to others, it's how do I efficiently and effectively complete my responsibilities, so that I have enough time to do other things, whether or not those other things are for, you know, personal pleasure or just responsibilities that you have in other places, right? You have families, you have other things you need to do. Um, well, we can probably have a whole podcast about controversial
Different
work-life
different
balance, but
pod.
we are coming up to the lightning round.
Oh, I like.
Um, so what advice would you tell your younger self?
I think I was complacent. I think I could have been more aggressive. I think I could have had a little bit more faith in myself. So there were a couple of, moments when I could have been just like, it's time to do this on your own. And I decided not to. I don't regret those moments though. But if I could do it again, I think I could be a little bit more aggressive.
What's your advice for someone struggling in the industry?
Oof, this is going to be, I mean, if you're struggling in the industry, like ask yourself if you really want to do it. Right. I don't think this is an industry that you should stay in if you don't love it. Right. So ask yourself first if it's the industry that's causing you not to like it, or if it's you that's causing it not to like it. If it's you, give it a shot. If it's the industry, get out, because this industry takes no prisoners, right? Like it doesn't. And it's a place where, to be frank, you don't make that much money. So if it's not making you incredibly happy, look somewhere else, because you don't want to be, you don't want to be the 42-year-old that like is jaded and unhappy in this industry, and I see it a lot. That was dark. I'm sorry.
It was very real. I
Yeah.
mean, it's an industry that definitely passion is a driver. You have to love it. And oftentimes when people are struggling and they take a step back and see what they're struggling with, if it's the industry, then that the industry is not changing. It evolves, but it is what it is, right? And people
It
love
is.
it for it, and that's where a lot of the passion and drive come from. What's your advice for fellow hospitality leaders?
Eat at your own restaurants. Like sit down at a table and actually have the experience. I can't stress that enough. You To chefs and managers. I'm a chef by trade. Here's why I do it as a chef. As a chef, if you eat one bite of one dish and you say it's good or it's not good, you have had a completely different experience than your customer is going to have, who's sitting down, who's having multiple dishes and beverages with a server. You have no idea how that one bite plays in the actual arena that is going to play it. Managers too, right? Like we see employees from a professional management side, right? You need to see them from a customer side, right? Like that employee that you might, just like you can't figure, an employee you can't figure out, right? That employee might be magic table side. You don't know. Sit down at your restaurants and eat. Anyway,
Right. I love it. On that note, Erling, thank you so much for taking time. I know you got a lot of things to do. It's really nice to see you, and I can't wait to see what else you've got cooking, like literally and figuratively. But
thank you so much. It was a pleasure and an honor to be with you.
remember, success looks different for everyone in hospitality. No two paths are the same. If you have a leader or a topic you want to hear about, email media@culinaryagents.com. Hospitality on the Rise is brought to you by Culinary Agents, connecting top talent with employers since 2012. Whether you're hiring or looking for your next opportunity, join us at culinaryagents.com. For more inspiration, subscribe to Hospitality on the Rise and visit hospitalitycareerpaths.com, a free platform by Culinary Agents. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. And if you love this episode, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration.